Appendix III, Creature Index. Dragons. One of those powerful races of beings in the Weyhak'duram universe, dragons are more than great flying reptiles. Very few dragons have existed throughout Weyhak'duram's first two ages, only two of them being at all notable. The first would be Dangaharp, a golden dragon bound to the sun god Keras. Keras is said to ride this dragon across the sky, shedding light upon the world of Weyhak'duram. The second dragon worthy of mention is, of course, Antagar, a white dragon who defeated the demon Valkor in the Second Age. To this day, he lives in peace on the island of Tamak in the east. Dragons are created when a worthy spirit is brought back from beyond the veil. Take the example of King Hradas Cainliel I. He was killed by his brother in the battle for Puka in the year 144 of the Second Age. Upon dying, his soul passed north beyond the veil, where departed souls linger until their time to sail across the white waters. Shortly after Hradas' death, the sapling Fataldi brought him back as a dragon. Dragons are given different names by those who bring them back. In truth, only a small part of their original self remains within them, but the more they linger in the living world, the more reconnected they begin to feel. Although they seem to have transcended time somehow, and are now the keepers of many memories and secrets of the world. Dragons have the ability to appear in a glowing image of their former selves, or to appear in their truly dragonic forms, similar to Therianthropes. See Therianthrope section of this appendix. Dragons can live for thousands of years, if not killed, it is believed, but one has yet to see a dragon die of old age. The color of a dragon generally expresses their task in the world. The following is a list of dragon types. Blue and green dragons. Blue and green dragons are generally the weakest of all. Throughout the first age of Weyhak'duram, a few dragons of these types existed, but they were quickly killed off by the first men. These dragons seem to be caring and helpful when possible, but they are not the best fighters. Blue dragons in particular are known for their sympathy, and their task is usually that of holding precious memories of the world. Green dragons are typically sent to help or protect people, and are slightly more hostile than blue dragons. However, none of these dragons exist in the world today. White dragons. White dragons are some of the most righteous beasts in the world. Antagar was the first and only white dragon to appear thus far in history. Their purpose seems to be as skilled warriors to defeat a dark force and bring justice. They are quite powerful and are able to breathe ice. They are very large, nearly 3 times the size of a blue or green dragon, that's around 25 feet tall. Gold dragons. Dangaharp being the only known gold dragon in existence, very little is known about these creatures. It is clear that they are larger than any other dragon ever recorded in Weyhak'duram. Their mission seems to be to shed light and bring good to the world. Evil cowers in the sight of a golden dragon, lesser dark beings even crumbling under the light that emanates from them. A golden dragon also seems to shed a light in a more literal sense, and Dangaharp's light is a large portion of the light seen as the sun. Black dragons. The last of the known dragon varieties, black dragons are only ever seen in the Far East, in Jabrad and the lands of banishment where many dark things dwell. These dark worlds are the domain of Talmor, the dark sapling, and beings such as black dragons would only ever be created by him. With the protection of Fang'axan and the rest of the light saplings, the lands of Weyhak'duram have not yet been touched by the evil forces of black dragons, who breathe red-hot fire and bring death and chaos wherever they go. Everlayers. Some of the most mysterious beings in Weyhak'duram, Everlayers are what one might call the guardians of the north. They can be envisioned as large white wolves with yellow eyes. The male Everlayers also have large antler-like horns which grow from their heads. Their fangs contain a deadly toxin, and they may sometimes morph their presence to avoid dangerous situations. Everlayers cannot be classified as strictly good or evil. Their overall goal is for good, to protect the true north from the humans and other beings of Weyhak'duram. The true north being the land of the dead and the resting place of souls, it is important to keep it pure and uncontaminated. The Everlayers prowl the border in high north, hunting deer and such to survive. They only ever kill Archis if they feel that they have come too close to the border and are threatening its safety. There are, of course, extra defensive measures after the main border, but Archis must not cross the border. The Everlayers are of equal or even higher intelligence than humans and have a distinct hierarchy within their community. Scouts. The Scouts are the most common and lowest class of Everlayer. The scouts are all part of different small patrols across the high north. Each patrol has a captain. The scouts themselves are the ones sent out into the high north to keep Archers away. They are the first line of defense and are generally the smaller of the Everlayers. Any Everlayers an Archers comes across will almost certainly be a scout. Captains. There is one captain to each patrol, which consists of 10 to 20 Everlayers. The captains of patrols generally stand on guard at different points along the border, and together they protect its entirety, forming the second line of defense. Captains are Everlayers who started out as scouts but have proved themselves worthy of commanding others, showing themselves to be good leaders. If a scout in a given captain's patrol failed to apprehend an Archist or group of Archists, a captain will often give that Everlayer a mark, which consists of a slash across their flank. If a scout receives 3 marks, they are usually executed soon after, unless the Hierarch himself pardons them. Sentinel. Sentinels are only slightly above the rank of captain. Sometimes a captain who has done exceptionally well will be promoted to a sentinel. Sentinels are typically very large Everlayers, most of the time male for their horns. Sentinels do not command a patrol. Instead, they stand guard outside the Haldua, the dwelling of the Hierarch. If a sentinel is lucky, they may sometimes get to guard the entrance to the great tree of the Haldua itself, generally in pairs. Hylesguard. The Hylesguard is by far the most prestigious and honorary rank of all the Everlayers, other than being the Hierarch. The members of the Hylesguard are chosen directly by the Hierarch and are the best of the best of the best. Almost always large and terrifying, only a long-standing sentinel who has proven themselves again and again to be a capable warrior will ever have a chance of being accepted into the Hylesguard. Even then, a new member is only ever needed when a previous member dies. The Hierarch keeps 10 Everlayers in his Hylesguard at all times. These are the only Everlayers who guard the boundary between the land of the dead and the living. They are the last line of defense, and they sit unmoving in the royal meadow all day, every day. The Hierarch. The lord of all Everlayers and the greatest of them all, the Hierarch is the only being who is permitted to move between the worlds of life and death. Only he may cross the boundary, and only in a time of great need. The Hierarch generally lives longer than all other Everlayers, and lives for the entirety of an age. Once the age is over, the Hierarch dies, and the strongest member of the Hylesguard will take his place. As the third age commences, the third Hierarch in all of history will take a spot within the Haldua, as he or she prepares to lead the Everlayers of the High North. As of yet, all Hierarchs have been male. And thus the Everlayers' eternal challenge goes on, to protect the North from those who would choose to interfere. Goblins. Vile beings, goblins are mountain-dwelling creatures. Typically smaller than humans, goblins have sharp ears and gnarly faces. Matted hair covers their faces, and their clothing is generally rags. While in peaceful times, goblins are still thought to live in the mountains of Weyhak'duram, they are rarely seen, and pose no real threat. However, it is in times when the land of Weyhak is inhabited that the goblin population shoots up dramatically, and goblins begin to pour from the mountains to join whatever wicked army has risen. Goblins are hysterical Weyhak'ists and worship the demon Valkor until 144 of the Second Age, and then his master Talmor after that. Goblins love chaos, evil, and violence, and dark forces seem to draw them in like magnets. They are easy soldiers to make up a large part of a Weyhak'ian army, and are often used as fodder during war. Whenever such an army is defeated and the goblin race seems almost gone, they always seem to come back, the mountains being their eternal source. Greyones. Arguably some of the better leaders of a Weyhak'ian army, Greyones were beings created to lead the Black Army which attacked Weyhak'duram in 142 to 144 of the Second Age, in a quest to free the demon Valkor from the underworld. For several hundred years, the 3 seals of old were scattered over the world. The ring was kept safe by the Kethvar family in Callio, the sun crown sat upon the head of the king or queen of Weimar, and the witch held onto the dragon knife until the right time. A radical man who began practicing Weyhak'itism and worshipping Valkor in the underworld went to Callio and stole the ring. The man, whose name was Urkan Desmod, was hearing whispers from his master far below and carried out his orders. As soon as a being under Valkor's control took the ring, the very first Grey One was created. In appearance, Grey Ones take the form of their previously human selves, yet their skin is gray, their blood is black, and their eyes are a solid black. In addition, their hair turns white, and they begin to speak only the ancient tongue. The Grey Ones dress in dark gray flowing robes and would join together in groups in the dead city of Weyhak'duram to discuss their plans for their next attack. Once Orcan had been turned, Jatvarn Kenglil unknowingly sailed right into his grasp, and Orcan quickly changed Jatvarn with the dragon knife which he possessed. Any of the seals could be used to change people into Grey Ones. Jatvarn and Orcan looked for suitable fighters and strategists to turn, as to have a group of Grey Ones capable of commanding the dark forces of Valkor's army, especially since becoming a Grey One enhanced the strength, power, and fighting abilities of anyone turned. Once the Grey Ones began to appear in Venoch, Orcs and Goblins flocked to them from out of the mountains and hills of Venoch. But soon after Valkor's demise, the last of the Grey Ones was exterminated, their reign in the Black Land lasting scarcely 2 years. Orcs. Often grouped in with goblins, orcs are in fact quite similar to their goblin brethren, descended from them in fact. But while goblins were a race of creatures created by Talmor before his departure, orcs were the product of breeding between goblins and men in the very early days of Weyhak'duram. It is not a subject one's mind would wish to dwell on, but orcs are in essence a more human goblin. While breeding quickly like goblins, orcs are generally stronger, larger, and better fighters than goblins, who are often thought of as puny and insignificant. While the Venochian orcs live in the mountains for the most part, like goblins, to stay alive, they do go out more and need the outside air to keep them sane every now and then. Orcs are known for their muscular bulk and gruff speech, and their weapon of choice is more likely to be a longsword than a goblin scimitar. Because of their skill in battle, they make up an important part of the dark forces. Therianthropes. Calling Therianthropes creatures in the Creature Index is a little harsh, but it's the easiest place to discuss this fascinating race of people. The simple definition of a Therianthrope is a person with the ability to morph into another animal. The easiest and most obvious example is Jatvarn Kenglil and his ability to change into a tiger. Therianthropy is genetic, and is typically passed down from generation to generation, sometimes skipping a generation and sometimes dying out altogether. Therianthropy was much more common in the First Age than any other. The origin of the Therianthropes isn't fully known. Some people believe that it was simply part of the sapling's plan. However, the more commonly believed theory is that the beginning of the Therianthropes was caused by the witch Cancervalerie. Whatever the reason for the creation, most lines of Therianthropes died out in the First Age, with only a few long-standing lines remaining. The Kenglil family is one of these long-standing houses. See Appendix IV to follow this trait further genetically. At first, Therianthropes were feared, and for good reason. Many began to exploit their power and kill innocent people. Slowly over the years, however, families such as the Kenglils gained trust in their communities. A Therianthrope generally has a single animal they can turn into, decided by fate, and they must either learn to use this power wisely and appropriately, or vow never to use such powers. Most Therianthropes take the form of a land creature. Some more common ones are things such as bears, lions, and boars. However, a few lucky members of some very long-standing families have been equipped with wings or fins, forms such as eagles, sharks, or crocodiles. Overall, Therianthropic activity has greatly declined over the Second and Third Ages, but those that remain are very powerful indeed. Xandarians. Xandarians are what might be called the spawn of Venoch, and are more commonly known as the clackers because of the way in which they clack their teeth together. Xandarians are ugly creatures. They walk on 4 legs with long claws on each. Their mouths are very large and filled with innumerable long fang-like teeth. Interestingly enough, the Xandarians' blood is orange. A similar colored mucus is also known to drip from the area around their eyes. The Xandarians are called the spawn of Venoch because their origin is unknown, and the creatures seem to spring from the land itself. Most likely the clackers were Valkor's creation. This would also explain why reciting the words etched onto the 3 seals worked to repel the creatures, because the words that bound Valkor in the earth also repelled the creatures of his own creation. This incantation was, of course, the Xandarians' only weakness. In truth, the beasts are really unstoppable in the great numbers that they appeared. A group of well-trained warriors might take down one Xandarian if they were lucky, but when there are millions of them, destruction seems quite inevitable. These beings are able to sprint incredibly fast, seem to have no fear of death, and slash their teeth and limbs at insane speed. They are the ultimate killing machines, resistant to wind, water, maybe even fire, but the incantation of the sun crown on the seals is enough to make them all flee. Similarly, when their master Valkor was killed, all the clackers also perished soon after. and thus the Xandarians were wiped out in 144 of the Second Age.